What's his theory on why boundaries aren't working or what's needed? And I'll add on to this, or we'll see what people think.
Each one of you individually needs to come up with a moral philosophy. You need to answer some questions. What is the purpose of life? I don't care what answer you give, homies, but you've got to have one. You've got to have something. It could be religion, it could be philosophy. You could take it from a science fiction novel. That's not a silly suggestion. That's not me being facetious. There are good science fiction novels that give you like an idea of cosmology that's as good as anything else I've ever seen. But you need one. You need one. You need a sense of meaning. You need to have your idea of what right is, your idea of what wrong is, and you need to be able to answer the question, how should a person live? Because if you can't do that, you'll never develop these magical things in psychology called boundaries. Oh, we're going to teach people boundaries. Okay. You're going to artificially give people the shield and the sword, but you're not going to show them when to use it, how to use it, where to use it, or even how to survive the situation without a shield or a sword. That seems odd to me. That seems like a really
fucked up,
cack-handed, awkward, why is that your solution? We're going to teach you boundaries. This is how to say no. The way you're saying no, you sound like a school mom. I'm not a school mommy person. I don't know if I'm comfortable wagging my finger at people and saying, listen here, I find what you said totally offensive and I want to speak to a manager. Well, that's not me. I don't want to model what you're doing. I want something for me. So you should have something for you that is not anemic, that isn't adhering to some weird implicit ideology. Because unfortunately, the politics creeps into psychology, politics creeps into all the social sciences. And I'm like, why do we do it like this? Why are we so scared of talking about morality? Oh, because, well, if there's a morality, then they're wrong, and you can't say that that's wrong. I'm like, well, you can. You don't. You can at least have the conversation. You can at least present the case. You could at least go, hey, this is why I think that probably isn't a fucking good idea. Shut it down. It gets shut down. That's a problem.
We're trained by self-help and psychology to not criticize, to go to authorities to criticize, to not have our personal opinion. As part of what Stacy was asking earlier that I pointed out, maybe I think that was the email, that I want feedback, but codependents don't give me feedback. They tell me, oh, it's great and blah, blah, blah. I need the negative feedback so I can improve. But so many of y'all have been programmed to not have an opinion or to tell positive opinions, and you're not used to taking criticism or just honest alternative view, not even a criticism. Here's a different way of looking at something. Somehow your philosophy you subscribe to is just to follow authority, and when it doesn't work, you cry to authority. And then when you have no authority, or the authority believes in narcissists, now you're screwed. So one teaser of how I handle boundaries is when someone tests boundaries, instead of saying no fully, I redirect to the future. I take the lead and say, we're going here. You offer an alternative and go there. So that's not only starting a negotiation, it's actually taking action towards the next step of the negotiation, and then seeing if that person resists or not. If you find middle ground between you and the other person's position, you start going that way, they're not going to resist. They're going to follow. So then you're setting a boundary, renegotiating without even saying anything. But that's teaser in the future.
But you made a really good point the other day that I wanted to bring up.
Bring it.
In thinking that we've mastered something, we create our own blind spots in there.
Yes.
I've made this boundary, so now I'm okay. And that was a wake-up call for me.
Because if you put too much focus on boundary, you have a shield.
Right.
But your shield has a downside that it's heavy and you're tired. And your shield has a downside that you have a blind spot behind you.
Right.
So you have the illusion that your shield is protecting you, so you don't look at your blind spot. And you're tired from carrying your shield.
Exactly.
So when somebody gets behind your shield,
a real wake-up call for me.
chops your head off, then you're really humbled. So you don't want to know anybody's behind you because you want your shield to create this false illusion of safety.
No, but I do think in my own head, if I'm taking the power away and not thinking, oh my God, if I come across another narcissist, oh my God. Actually, given these tools, I'm pretty sure I will come in contact with plenty more, but I'll be okay.
Tantrum energy is sort of the invisible energy that codependents and narcissists use. Narcissists use it more overtly to get you to jump. Codependents use it more collectively. They start amping up their tantrum energy, and all the other rescuers jump in and then enforce it. But we need a framework of how tantrum energy works. And then, so this is based on children. We'll see if any parents identify or can spot this or agree.
The same way, and not just all people. Monkeys tantrum the same way, apes tantrum the same way, not just people from Western countries, hunter-gatherers tantrum the same way. We have the same vocalization, the same body emotions, everything. We all tantrum the same. So a tantrum almost always begins with anger. The anger tapers off throughout the course of the tantrum. It's a very serious tantrum.
So tantrums have an element of anger or raw rage, but that's balanced out with sadness.
The anger can display by throwing things, hitting people, biting, kicking. If it's a minor tantrum, it might be just screaming, but there's a display of anger. And
so I would say a narcissist uses anger first, and that's what codependents are scared of. And it's high at first, and then if you just wait it out or feel it out, it naturally drops. But since codependents have been trained to be afraid of the rage attack before it even happens, you haven't even weathered the initial storm to realize that it's just all bark and no bite. So there's anger, and then there's a sad part. I think he talks about the sad part next.
Peaks at the very beginning of the tantrum and then tapers off as the tantrum goes on. At the same time that anger starts, there's an undercurrent of sadness, distress.
So at the same time, based on research, and I have the professor who did research, a tantrum has anger and sadness simultaneously. But typically, most people only notice the anger part because that's the most annoying part. Or the sadness is also pretty fucking annoying. But so I would say that codependents tend to hide in pity. They link to see somebody else having some emotional trigger, and then they feel that sorrow. And that's where you fall into the empathy compassion trap. That's the sadness side. The narcissist would rage and try to blame somebody and project their anger out. It's both tantrum energy.
Just whining, dropping to the floor, sad behaviors. That remains consistent throughout the tantrum. If you leave a child alone, if a child tantrums and you turn your back and walk away, within about 5-10 minutes on average, this child will go through the process of a tantrum and come to resolution, which will end with sniffling and sadness.
So for most tantrums, if you just let the tantrum flow out, it resolves on its own.
Normal.
But if you've grown up and you were throwing a tantrum and the parent took the hammer down and beat the crap out of you or judged you, then you associated that you having a tantrum and expressing it is dangerous. Your world falls apart. Not that it falls apart. You get extra abuse from your family figures. So now tantrum energy is dangerous. It means everything's falling apart. You fall apart. Other people fall apart. Danger happens. So now you're hyper aware to potential tantrum. And then you set boundaries around that. Like, I will never have a rage attack, or anybody who's raging is a narcissist.
I learned not to, do what I can to not get to that point.
Right.
Yes. So you can numb yourself, to dissociate, avoid, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, if you play emotional chicken and let it burn out, then the tantrum stop.
Is the tantrum part of the love bomb or the devalue or the discard? Like, where does it fall in the narcissistic cycle?
Everywhere. It's all raw, intense tantrum energy. That's why the love bombing is so exciting. Because you get rescued from your tantrum energy. So they somehow elicit your your sad wound, and then they jump in and rescue you. And it feels like you're finally being loved by your parent figure that never loved you.
Right.
Yeah. And that's and then you can add sex to it too. So you could have sex with your parent figure that you weren't able to have with this.
Okay, that's creepy.
Yes. I'm trying to add the creepiness so you aren't going to fall for this replaying of your childhood attachment wound.
Thanks.
You're just having sex with your parent figure that you didn't have an attachment with.
Okay, ew.
Yes.
Wow.
That's Freud. Freud thought everything was mother or father childhood wound.
Doesn't make it so.
Searching for that Oedipal reloving. Yes, it's gross.
So the narcissist uses the narcissistic rage for an ends to a means. Like he'll get
To
you to
open
shut
up your
up.
vulnerability, to pull your strings, and also to create a love bond,
Right.
to create a dependency relationship. But they're not doing it consciously. This is just all childhood baby tantrum energy with a little
Right.
bit of
Like
skill.
they need attention. They need attention. Tantrum.
That's what tantrums are. Baby throws a tantrum because it wants attention and it wants connection. Same MO as an adult.
Yeah, because
I'm more
the
important
last-
than the other person. So you have two babies tantruming, and then the one that tantrums the loudest wins. So if you have a
Right.
lot of kids, you can see multiple kids tantruming, and then it's a tantrum battle. If there's only one caregiver, and they'll jump in.
And then
take
you
care of
back
whoever wins.
down because you're the codependent. You back down, then you want to make it right. And then you feed into their energy, and you suck up to them, you feed their ego, and then the cycle just continues on and on again. Is that what you're saying?
Here's an example of an adult tantrum at 25. And this is a good example because I think it shows both the anger and the sadness. This is 2 minutes. Now, make sure you're calm because this might trigger your tantrum energy, because this is a pretty intense rage thing. But it's not at you. It's only on the video. And it's in the past. So there's nothing, you don't need to save this guy. There's no one to save. There's no one to rescue. It's just pure entertainment. Are you able to just watch this as pure entertainment? Okay? Test yourself. Or Alex can self-soothe with the cat. See? So she's prepared. Anybody else need like alcohol or stuff to prepare? Okay, so 2 minutes.
I'm gonna
Calm down.
sorry, but listen, you gotta stop with that. You gotta stop getting in my life, stop butting in, let me talk to my girlfriend, and I will make sure she gets home safely.
Okay, there's two boundaries going on. He's setting a boundary. It's very clear, right? Get the fuck out of my space. I'm talking to my girlfriend. Father is saying, you're acting up. I think the girlfriend's in danger. I might call the police. So two boundaries coming face to face. Okay?
Someone else needs to give her a ride home, not you, okay? I'm going to call the police if you don't calm down.
Yeah, if you call the cops, I'm gonna come over there and strangle you. You're butting into my
Did you see the threat? He said, the father was calm, said, I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to call authority. He said, I'm going to come over there and strangle you. And he escalates more. I think he does. Let's see.
back off and let me talk.
You stop.
She hates this when we argue.
She's in charge of herself. Calm down,
I can't calm down when you beat a
then take a walk.
That's what I want to do. Can we take a walk?
She does.
Now he's doing a better job at redirecting. He's saying, calm down, take a walk. So he did agree and then said a redirect, like, I'm going to take a walk with her. So he's trying to call authority, and he can with the police in this system, so he's got more leverage. But the kid is doing better redirection. He's making a better argument. Anything that the father says, he just redirects it to his agenda and moves forward. So he's moving forward to his agenda, going to the girlfriend. The father's trying to get close and is chasing. So the kid is leading. He's doing better leading. But the father has more leverage with the police later.
Doesn't need to go anywhere. She's afraid. Just stop, Stephen. Stephen, you better stop. Please, stop.
So he tested the threat right there. The father said, stop. I'm an authority. What did he do? He went straight to the father. Dominance battle, test, emotional chicken. And who backed off?
The son.
No.
The
Let's
dad.
replay. You didn't see this? This is pretty easy.
The dad said, please.
Right here, the son, the father is trying to escalate to get his attention.
Right.
And then who went toward each other and who backed off? Let's watch
The
again.
father came. Wait, play it again.
Right here.
Stephen, you better stop. Please, stop.
Father's back.
Who backed off first?
But the father puts his hand up, says you better stop, but the son does turn.
Yeah, but the
That's
father's
after the
backing
father
away the whole
retreated.
time.
Yeah. Look at the fist.
Pure body language. Who's more dominant in that posture? Who
The son,
retreated? Who collapsed?
father
The
collapsed.
words are bullshit.
Play it again. We'll go back 1 more minute on it.
See, this is so hard to spot. See, you're
Watch
listening to the words.
Watch the father's legs.
Watch the body language. This is a dominance alpha beta battle.
Then take a walk.
That's what I want
Take a walk.
Take a walk. real
She
quick.
doesn't need to go anywhere. She's afraid. Just stop, Stephen. Stephen, you better stop.
Ugh.
Who was leading?
I see, because he's got his fists up.
The
Yeah.
father. That's a retreat.
Yeah. All right. Can we keep playing it?
After he said, I won, then he backed off, but he said he's still in a dominant position. This is what the body language is saying. This is an energetic chicken. If you just pay attention to the rational side, you'll go, oh, the father said retreat, he's listening, the father saying he's calling the police. At the rational level, looks like the father's doing the rational right thing. But at the pure emotional child tantrum level, he's
Mhm.
still winning the battle. And he's not consciously planning this out. It's all emotional, instinctive intuition. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Keeping up? Okay. Continue.
Stop. Okay? You want it? You're going to go to jail tonight if you continue this. Back off,
Please
Stephen.
listen to me.
So he's escalating.
Mhm.
Not only I'm going to call the police, you're going to jail. And then now there's more posturing. Father is retreating maybe, and he's leading. He's still dominance battle.
Don't call the cops.
You're too close.
I'm begging you, don't call the cops.
Just go.
Please.
Just Stephen, what is wrong with you? Come on.
Ugh.
Hello? Hey! Stop, Stephen, stop!
Ay, ay, ay.
Stop.
Who's aggressive? He walked away, said, don't do it. That was a threat. Father didn't listen. He checked back to hear the father was still doing the behavior. So then he escalated his abreaction. How did he escalate this time? He ran, he sped up, and he did a much more aggressive dominance to try to control the father's behavior. So that's at least 3 different levels of escalation. So first, less aggressive. Second, starting to move towards. And third time, actually rushing at him.
Steve, does this kind of behavior, I'm assuming this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Like, the reason this is important to me is I'm just thinking about my family dynamics and raising children, right? And so, as a child, could we assume that this kid has been testing the boundaries all along? I mean, he's not, like, he got to this place because his parents probably...
He didn't get to this place. This is innate child behavior. This is innate mammalian behavior. Dogs do this. Gorillas do this. Wolves do this.
But it would have looked very different as a small child, right? Like, as a small child, they're not physically, going to affect us. You can...
Small children don't beat up on each other.
No, but they don't beat
Older
up on
brothers
adults,
don't
right?
beat up on younger children. Older siblings don't take advantage of their younger siblings.
No, I just mean like a small child tantruming. This is what you're saying. Like if you
Small
let the
child will try to beat up on a big adult, but it won't look as intimidating because there's a size difference. Yes. So what?
So if you walk away, if you play that emotional chicken early on,
You're not playing emotional chicken if you're walking away. You're caving. You're going beta. You're not, it's an alpha battle. It's a dominance hierarchy posturing test. Where are you stuck, Alex?
I'm stuck on how you're supposed to behave with that, because if you constantly keep upping
That's
it.
later in the meeting. Right now, we're trying to dissect.
Okay, I'll chill.
We're trying to build awareness. If you aren't aware of it happening in the moment, no advice is going to help you. Tony, was that a reaction of that's good or what?
Just the reaction of, I get it.
Yes.
I'm the youngest.
So I warned you before the video that people might get triggered. You had your cat to help soothe you, and you're still getting triggered. And you're probably not aware that you're getting triggered.
That's
and
true.
Leslie's getting triggered with whatever food or something.
Allegra.
So if you don't have an awareness of your triggers and you don't have awareness that triggers are contagious, then you don't recognize how powerful emotional tantrum energy is. And then you can project it to the narcissist doing this, but codependents do the same tactic with just a slightly different flavor. They're leading with the sadness first instead of the aggression. The aggression is veiled behind, but they're leading with sadness to evoke other rescuers. And if that doesn't happen, the anger comes out. Same dynamic. So he escalates to the third level. He's running out of options. The father is backing him into a corner. You back someone to a corner, then you back a dog into a corner, there's a tendency the dog's going to get more vicious. So if you're going to back someone in a corner, usually it's better to give them an out. But he backs someone to a quarter and there's no out. He was saying you might go to jail. So that's a physical box. That's a corner. That's a symbolic corner. That was the father's threat. That's the threat of what's the parent thing? Go to your room or go to the corner and sit and wear a dunce cap. Is that what they teach kids now, or in the 80s, 90s, or whatever? Stop kidding the kids, so we're just gonna put you in the corner. And they thought that was better for kids. Now you're creating psychological abuse instead of a physical beating that's easier for the kid to understand. You're going to make them go into the corner and you're abandoning kids now. You're using abandonment to motivate kids in exile. And you're saying you're loving, or all the teachers. We're loving. We love you. You're a problem. Go to the corner. And if you're too much of a problem, go to special ed. And if you're too much of a problem, go to a mental institution. And if you're too much of a problem, go to jail.
Either way, you got to go somewhere.
Yeah. You're not acceptable. One behavior, if you can't figure out how to control it, we're just going to throw you away. That's America.
What's wrong with that?
Exactly, see?
Throw them away.
It works, but
Yes,
the
throw them.
narcissist games that system.
What up, guy? I know who it is. What?
See, so Scott saw it, the defensive and aggressive. And then we just sort of throw away our exiles. So our inner exiles, our inner child parts, we exile into our shadow, and we're forever wounded. Okay, so he ran right here. Father's calling.
Hey! Stop, Steven, stop! Just stop.
Just get out of here. For real. If you called the cops,
Just
go.
stop.
If you called the cops?
Yeah.
So he's all about calling the cops and going to jail. All he wants is that behavior to be controlled. And he's trying to force his father's behavior to not call the cops by escalating and throwing more tantrum energy directed at the father. But now he's got 2 against 1, and it was just a threat. He didn't actually do any physical blows. He's just all bark, 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 bark. But the bark was because he's scared of the cops coming.
He did.
But
No,
he
he did. Just
scared
go.
What?
But he wasn't scared enough to not, like, to de-escalate, right? Like, I mean, he chooses to keep escalating rather than just doing the thing his dad is telling him to do, which is leave the
So
girlfriend
your
alone.
current argument is exactly staying in that rational frame of saying every person's action is totally self-reflected and decided and planned out, and then they act. Where is the evidence in the video that that's matching? So,
Right. I mean, his aggression could be because he's scared, right?
yes, but he's just acting it out emotionally. He's not rationally saying, oh, I feel scared. I don't want to feel scared. I'd rather feel angry. And because I'm feeling angry, I'm going to try to get my dad to be scared by going through these 3-step protocol rationally, and I'm going to consciously choose every single step. Where do you see that in this video? See? But we don't like the video story, so we're going to superimpose our own rationalization and say, well, he's decided to do it, therefore he must have chosen every single thing he's doing. And he must be consciously aware because that's what he's doing.
I think I'm saying a different thing. I think I'm
What are
saying
you saying?
I'm saying he's not aware that he had other choices. Like this doesn't have to keep playing out the way it is. And
Yes,
I think
it does.
Well, I think that's what you're trying to teach. All right, I'm going to shut up again. All right, I've got a theory. I'm going to hang tight.
One of the problems with academics and self-help is like all people need is more education. And what that means is they need more social programming. They need to learn how to conform more by getting more teachers, more drugs, and then they will conform into society. And the people that don't, we will throw away into jail and mental institutions. And Scott mentioned we have a pipeline of the prison system. We throw away the people that don't conform. And Monita knows that by seeing how family situation, and then you just can't, the systems have got nothing. If they don't listen, or this person, people need to go into therapy, people need this, and then they'll learn. All they need is more programming. All the narcissist needs is more programming. Well, the narcissist isn't going to therapy. Now what are you going to do? Narcissist goes to therapy, and the therapist likes the narcissist more than you. What are you going to do? The narcissist programs the therapist. He programs the programmers. What are you going to do?
Stay your course.
You're going to just dig in and say, most therapists are child of alcoholics trying to relive their past childhood wounds. So you're just, as a patient, client, you're just a projection of their unmet parent needs. So they want to rescue and fix you so they can try to projectively rescue their parent.
True.
So they're not going to see your codependence because they're going to have to own their own codependence. And they'll have to work on themselves, which therapists don't.
The good ones do.
So last Sunday, I have a dialogue group I go to, which is all therapists. And then at least 2 therapists, maybe 3 therapists, openly admitted that they need to do the group therapy and give advice to others, and they gain more from it than the people getting it. So by playing the role of therapist, they're getting supply as a helper, and they were feeling guilty for charging the people. because they were feeding off their helplessness or their shared helplessness, and they felt good about themselves by helping the group. Instead of working with their own stuff, they dived into the role of playing, I'm the rescuer, I'm the healer, I feel good. So can we continue, or do we have more reactions?
Let's continue.
You sure? I mean, there's only like 40 seconds left. I mean, but I mean, I don't know.
I want to see what happened.
Exactly. Why don't people want to see the end of the fucking video in the story? Why do you have to go change it in the middle? Do you do this when you watch movies and TV shows? You like watch a James Bond show and say, oh, this enemy isn't so good. Let me rewrite the enemy in the middle of the movie. Who does this? There you go. Or supposedly in black movie theaters, you have like people yell at the screen like, oh, get the fuck out of the way. That sounds exciting. Is that true, Tony, or not? I'm being racist, but I was racist last time.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's exciting. So at least they're speaking it out instead of trying to rationalize. They're in it like trying to say, I'm in the movie, I'm there, I can warn the people. That's kind of fun. Join in the TV show instead of like going, well, they could have done it this way and that way. What fun is that?
I love it.
There you go. Okay, so he ran off, then he came back a little or something. What happened? Here's a final standoff. Now the father chases after him. So the son rushed him to try to get him to stop calling. The father called the police. So now the father knows he has leverage. And what happens? He's the one who's the aggressor.
Go get him.
He's going towards the son. And the son is he going to be still dominant, or is he going to start collapsing? Is he going to go more beta, or is he going to try to escalate more alpha?
I got him being beta.
I say beta too, yeah.
I got beta.
Beta, any alpha votes?
Move the bathroom and win the war.
Is the son going to go more alpha? Does he have any more other escalation tactics?
He's done.
Yeah, probably. That's my read.
You called the cops?
Just go.
You called the cops?
Yeah, he did. No, he didn't. Just go.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so that's a cut. That was a few minutes later than the cops come. Who knows? And it wasn't the father who went alpha. It was a brother or another sibling. Because the father is a beta. He just calls authority. He's a codependent.
Please don't let me go to jail.
Okay, is that beta or alpha?
Beta.
Yeah, even though the father's beta, look at the father. What's his
Right.
posture? Is that aggressive? Is that winning? Or is that also, look at his eyes.
He's assured.
You sure that's not, he's trying to make sure he's not going to break down
No,
or
because
start
he
shaking?
doesn't want his son to go to jail.
Are you sure? Where do you see that?
That's not the
Because
point.
I'm a parent and you see
I know,
it
but
as
look at him. Where do you see it in his body language? I don't care
I
about
don't need to see it in his
your
body language. I just know
egocentric
that he's a parent
projection.
and he loves his son and he said it as a threat and doesn't really want his son to go to jail. Come on.
He looks calm to me.
No, he doesn't. He's
Okay, what
pissed
other
off.
opinions? What's he look like? Yeah, he looks a little pissed off. I can see that. But he's also scared. I see
He's
fear.
scared.
And uncomfortable.
I think he's trembling, but he's trying to not show it. Because his son's right above him, and the son's standing, and he's sitting. So he's not in a safe position.
Ugh.
But if he's standing, his legs might collapse because his legs are weak. So he sits down, tries to look calm. He's still waiting out if the police are going to fix the situation.
He looks frozen.
Yes, frozen. See? So he's beta, but he called authority. He called, I'm going to call mom. I'm going to call dad. This is what kids do. Same dynamic.
How are you? The girlfriend was nervous and didn't want to be with him, so I dropped.
So now they're both talking to the police. Listen to his listen to his tone. I can hear anxiety in his tone.
The girlfriend was nervous and didn't want to be with him. So
The girlfriend was nervous and didn't want to be with me. She didn't
so I
want
was
to be with me, so I
preventing
parked the
that.
car. I
And
took
he
the
wasn't
car.
being cooperative, so I called you.
I didn't.
Please.
How about you stand by that car?
I didn't go
Okay.
out and walk. So
Right, how about you stand by that car?
So they're both being beta. Is anyone trying to alpha the police officer?
Nope.
You see the police officer? Where's his right hand?
Right there by that.
And the gun.
Okay. That's nonverbal language. So go there, and his
I'm gonna
hand
shoot
is on
you.
the gun. That's leadership, and that's also threat. That's the consequence. So he doesn't have to say the consequence, he shows the consequence. Not just in the police car, not just in his uniform, he is actually body language of I have my gun right here. So in this alpha beta battle, who's winning? And he probably has another cop, so it's also, he's outnumbering them.
Okay.
My dad, he ruins everything. He calls the cops on me every time I act out. I'm so angry right now.
Ugh.
So the father calls the cops every single time. So that means calling the cops isn't teaching his son how to handle his acting out. It's also the father isn't teaching the son how to act out less. No one's teaching him how to handle his tantrum energy. Then right now he's saying he's angry, and look at his face. Look at his expression. Is he expressing anger now, or is it a different emotion?
Frustration.
So what's the body language of this emotion?
My dad, he ruins everything. He calls the cops on me every time I act out. I'm so angry right now.
Ugh, liar.
Anger, or what's the emotion?
He's defeated.
Defeated. What emotion is of defeat?
Sadness.
Sadness. So tantrums have anger and sadness at the same time. We typically only see the anger first, but anger and sadness happen at the same time. But the more obvious thing is you see the anger first and the sadness comes later, because anger peaks, then naturally fades and drops, because you can only hold anger so long. But the sadness is right underneath the surface, stays the same, and anger peaks and goes down, and then the sadness is still there. But he's not aware of his sadness. He's saying he's angry. He's aware he acts out, so Alex is saying he knows he did the behavior. He admits it right here.
But he doesn't. You know what? Because what
He doesn't know it. What doesn't he know?
He's still talking about the behavior between him and his father. And the whole reason he's in this fucking mess is because of the bullshit he did to his girlfriend.
No.
So he's not even
He's
in
got that
space.
fucking narrative from his father. It didn't work. You're telling me here that's not changing his behavior. That narrative doesn't help him improve.
He's not even thinking about his girlfriend in this. He is totally still like this. My dad ruins everything. Well, what the hell did his dad ruin? He was bullying his girlfriend. He wouldn't leave her alone. Like, what did
How many people
ruin?
feel Alex tantruming at this guy?
I'm angry.
How many people see Alex tantruming at this guy who's not even in the room?
Yeah.
That's at least 2. No one else sees Alex tantruming? Oh, there's a couple thumbs. There's 5. 5 people
I see it.
6.
And my daughter
7.
sees it.
There's 7 people seeing you, Alex, tantruming at this guy who's not in this room.
Is this a control thing? Like the narcissist couldn't control the situation, so it caused the tantrum, and now it's causing this?
Tantrum is when you have 2 needs that are important for the 2 people. It's an escalation of needs. And this, I'm not even sure what Alex's need is that's getting her to tantrum at an inanimate video. At a person who's not even in the room. Who are you tantruming at, Alex? 6, 7 people saw that you were tantruming or you were getting triggered. Who are you triggering at?
Well, I am triggered. That's
Yes.
true.
At who? At what?
Well, I'm triggered at a young man that is not owning his behavior to.
But he's not
a young
here.
woman.
There's tons of young kids out there in California, millennials, hanging out at the beaches. Are you spending all your time getting angry at them? Just read the news. There's tons of people not following coronavirus. Are you spending all your mental energy trying to socialize all the people who are listening to Fox News or whatever and just ignoring the coronavirus?
No, and I wouldn't have been trying to find this guy online either, right? Like, this is in my view. I didn't go looking for it. But I do react to it because I see the blind spot for him.
Why are you reacting to it? We're using empathy to go into your feeling, which hijacked the group, diverted into social conformity for a third party who's not even in here, to take all of the group energy. Let's figure out how to fix this guy who's not even in this room.
I don't want to fix him.
Okay, then let's analyze what was done wrong with him. What exactly, so why are you spending all this excess energy?
Because I have abuse in my background, physical abuse.
So you want to fix your parents so that they don't do that, or you want to fix your abuser.
You know, it's interesting that you keep the word keeps coming up as fix. I look at him
what do you see?
I am angry at his blind spot that he does not see that his consequence, what's happening to him, is not because his dad ruins everything.
So I'm angry at his blind spot. Okay. What else?
He wouldn't be in this fucking mess if he left his girlfriend alone when he needed to.
So if he was smarter and he knew better, okay, let me.
Not smarter,
if he knew better and he could see how his behavior affects everything else, then he'd be good. Or this wouldn't happen, right?
He shouldn't. Well, I just wish he wasn't abusive.
No, he wouldn't be abusive if he knew better.
Is it a know better thing, or is it just having better coping? Like
What's the difference? Better coping means you know better. How is that a different slice?
I guess because know better to me sounds like an intellectual response, and coping, like being able to connect it to your emotions and coping, is an emotional response, right? Like that's what you're trying to get us to.
So if he knew better, you don't like that. So you like if he copes better. You like that better?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, so that's your A to point B. So you're saying if he coped better, then all this would have never happened, right? Then no danger. Is that right? If he coped better, no danger.
Well, and also you have to accept consequences of your bad coping, right? Like there are consequences to you doing shit wrong.
And you have to accept the consequences of your stupidity, of your bad behavior, right? Let me check on the chat again. So let's see. There was complaints that the video was dragging out. There are secret complaints from mysterious anonymous members of the audience that were complaining that the video was taking too long. Just to throw it out there.
Is the video over? Or
No,
is it
that
still...
we drug it out with all the slowdowns and stuff that people wanted to psychoanalyze or make comments and not watch the video first and then make comments. So there is a private message saying that that was very challenging and painful to people in the room.
Right.
Okay, but back to the formula. I think this is close. So a rule that Alex came up in response to being triggered was if he could cope better, then there'd be no danger. And at the same time, because he couldn't cope better, he deserves the consequences and he needs to learn how to accept the consequences. Is that accurate or close enough, Alex? Okay. Now let me take those rules out of that frame and superimpose it into a parent talking to a child. Potentially abusively, an abusive parent talking to a child. does this sound familiar? So is this a role reversal maybe? So parent, child throws a tantrum.
Okay.
Child doesn't know any better. He eats too much ice cream, spills it, plays a game, and the game falls apart, and they cry. Parents, parents enjoying TV. What's a good TV show now? That's engrossing. Anything. Stacy.
Okay, but you can't laugh.
What do you not want to get bothered with if you're really engrossed?
Right now, I'm in the middle of watching Love Is Blind.
Okay, that's
The
a beautiful.
dumbest
That's a nice twist. You got this dating. You got the. I've read about
dumbest
it.
show ever.
It's dumb, but it's engrossing. So parents are watching this, and then the child, baby, does something stupid. What's a stupid thing a 5-year-old would do or a 3-year-old?
How about when my kids come in and try to interrupt my show with something that's necessary, and I'm like, dude, I'm watching TV.
No, I mean not
happens.
necessary. I mean like a trivial thing. What's a common trivial thing a child might interrupt?
They want dinner.
Oh, they're hungry, so yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Or they want dessert first, or they want candy or something. So I want candy.
Dessert first during a pandemic? Isn't that
and
okay?
You're busy watching Love Is Blind.
That's right.
Not just that, you're stoked up. You've drank a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
You're self-soothed and you're alcoholic stupor. You're smoking a couple blunts, whatever. You're enjoying your Love Is Blind.
And
you're even
what?
seeing things because it's your alcohol and your drugs are so good. Kid comes
Yes,
in,
they are.
interrupts your high.
Uh-oh.
Doesn't he have to come in? The kid's crying, having a tantrum in the room, or having a fight with some other kid. Who knows? But the tantrum comes. You're having your high. You're having your time. You're chilling. Kids are interrupting you.
Wait, take that back. Just for the record, I don't do that when my kids are around, but go on.
This is inspired from your
that out
story.
there. I just wanted to put that out there.
Fictional situation.
Okay.
So a drunk parent, who's sort of tipsy, could say, fuck, this is my high. You kid, you should know better. You should cope better. Would this be a common parent response?
An unhealthy parent response.
Yes. And then because you don't cope better, you deserve danger. Because if you cope better, you wouldn't get my hammer. So my hammer is, I'm going to throw something at you. A shoe. Women our moms like throwing shoes. What do guys do? I don't know. They punch. But you throw a shoe at the kid.
No, we don't.
Okay. Filipino moms do it. White moms might give some rationalization and then send them to the corner. That's not as exciting.
Oh, sweetheart, sit down. You just need a timeout.
Yes, you give them a timeout.
Okay.
I'll be back in 20 minutes. So you send them to the corner. Same abuse. You judge them. You give them abandonment.
Well, that's better. Now they have abandonment issues. Okay.
Yes, this is how abandonment. And then the parent justifies it by saying he has to accept the consequences of his bad behavior. And he deserves it. Is this a common narrative?
Probably.
Now, is this also a common narrative from the child's side? So child doesn't know any better, can't cope any better, wants the ice cream, goes to the parent figure for attachment. Parent figure says, you should cope better. And now you deserve the consequences because you can't cope better.
See, now you're making my case where I said earlier, that young man didn't wind up being like that right from the start. I mean, that's been a progression of things not happening,
Do you have any idea of where I'm going with your case?
Yeah, you're trying to say I've internalized my abuser's voice.
And how's that theory?
I'm not feeling in the frame of mind to wanting to engage around that.
Okay, how many people see that Alex might have that theory of internalizing her abuser? That's at least 3. And you don't want to go there. So you don't want to go there, and now you're going to continue with that narrative.
Not right now. I don't. I'm not good enough to do that.
But you're still going there because you've already gone there, and you're just trying to project it outward. This is what codependents do. They bleed on each other.
Right.
That's what happened last week. I'm trying to tell my story and be accurate with my story and link it to I'm being vulnerable to the audience. And then all the codependents worried about their triggers running over my story, making me feel more invisible. Because it's not safe to go there. I proved that was part of last week. I went somewhere that wasn't safe. I went there and you supposedly safe empaths proved that it wasn't safe to go there. And if you have a therapist who's a codependent or a child of alcoholic, if you go there to a sensitive spot, they're going to emotionally say that it's not safe to go there. So then you can't process that memory. You can't break out of that internalization of your parents' abuse. So that was my escalation. So Alex was trying to escalate and divert with her sorrow story, trying to collect other people join in her pity. It was a dominance battle, codependent style. I stayed there, and then I escalated by spotlighting my wound, and then say, okay, do you have a greater wound to match my wound? And that's sort of where we're at the stalemate right now. Because I can play victim. I'll cut myself. That was part of last week's story. I pulled the knife out to show that I'm willing to cut myself to show I'm a greater victim, physically. It's not a threat. I actually pulled the action to prove it. Codependents just threaten that they're going to break down and whatnot, but where's the proof? Bring it. Nothing. Okay, this video triggered Stacy. This is a shorter version, the ab reaction video. Is that right, Stacy?
I don't know, I gotta see it.
I mean, the 3-step ab reaction, the video link I sent.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to give any teaser to the group or preview? No setup? It might trigger them. You got triggered from this.
I know, but I need the recap.
And this isn't even this is just an explanation of the dynamic. It's not a emotionally intense video. Okay, this is a 3-stage ab reaction. He breaks it up into 3 different levels. I see it as more flexible. So there's degrees of escalation, of threat escalation, and controlled tantrum outburst that everyone sort of uses when they start freaking out. And it's an unconscious signal to get other people to back off. A narcissist would do it more aggressively, more overtly. Codependents and socialized people, they do it more from a victim stance. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I don't like this. What about this other person? So they raise the escalation systematically. But this isn't a triggering video. Or this isn't like a reenactment. It's a story of some of it, but it can still trigger people because it breaks down the system of how we manipulate each other unconsciously, almost systematically. Is that a better preview, Stacy? Right?
Yeah, I have to go and mute. My son's in the room, but I'm listening.
Yeah. So 3-stage ab reaction.
This is the pattern by which people freak out. Now, it doesn't matter whether they're psychotic.
So this is a pattern of how people freak out. And then codependence, when they see people freak out, then they act out. And they call it empathy. Or caring, or whatever you want to call it.
They're depressed. They're 2 years old. They're 92 years old. If it's you, if it's me. People tend to all follow this pattern. This is not the only explanation, but this is one of the consistent patterns between people and across groups of how people freak out. And I want to give you a very specific way of dealing with it as well, that may well challenge some of your beliefs. And some.
Okay, so this is a model of the three-step process and techniques of how to deal with it. Some, and we'll cover more later.
Of your experiences. Because I know most of you are nice people, and you are caring, sharing human beings who want the best for your clients, and you want to have a nice rapport, good relationship with your clients. But I've noticed that some clients, especially chronic ones, one of the patterns they have is this: humor me or I will punish you. Play my game or I will get angry.
So play my game, play by my rules, or I will get angry, or I will freak out, or I will be uncomfortable, or I will leave, or I will set boundaries. That's essentially the formula.
I'm paying you to do this, so you do as I say. I'm the customer. That's an.
And then if you're American, I'm the customer, customer's always right. So I can just make demands because I'm a customer, I'm entitled. Give me what I want, let me binge. In this situation, therapists are dealing with patients, or these are NLP practitioners. So if there's a money relationship, a lot of the patients dictate the rules. So if you go to a therapist and things are uncomfortable, you'll say, I don't want to go there. You'll give your unconscious messages and nothing gets done. Because the agenda is set by your inner child, which doesn't want to go process anything. And then the therapist, you're taking the lead, so they cave, and because they're scared of this three-stage ab reaction.
Attitude that a lot of people have. My attitude is very much, loonies do not run the asylum. So this is how it works. I don't get bought by any of those behaviors. If people buy me presents, that doesn't give them favor. If people basically go, well, I'm paying you, so I expect you to listen to me, my attitude is fine, but you don't get to tell me what to do. It's the other way around. And if they don't like that, they can leave. That is my attitude. I don't have a problem with it. But every now and again, a client will be unhappy with something I do or say because it doesn't fit their model of what I'm supposed to do or what they're familiar with.
So people watch a video, it doesn't fit the model. My presentation of it doesn't fit their model, so then they attack the model. Is that something that happens? Is that something that happened today? Did anyone see that earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the way you were running the video.
Yes, if you don't like, if people don't like it, it triggers or something doesn't match their worldview, then they attack the video or the presentation or they try to mess it up.
Right.
My brother, his strategy is he flips over the table emotionally. So people are playing a game, they're having a good time. He doesn't like the game or he doesn't like something. He emotionally says it's totally okay for him to just flip the game over and mess up everybody's time. That's his style of ab reaction. So instead of targeting on one person, he'll just ruin everybody's time.
Wow.
So codependence, they'll escalate one person, that person in charge or whoever doesn't listen, then they'll blow up more people's stuff. Like Ferris, or like, oh, oops. Like the one meeting where I had a Jordan Peterson video. Remember that a month ago or two? I played the video, it was a little clip, and then it ab reacted her. And that ab reaction said she had to beat up on Jordan Peterson and say he was like, whatever.
Wasn't that the one with the
hates transgender
sexual
people
content?
and hates this and all this stuff. And he said, oh, and he linked it to the sexual thing where if everything's in alignment, then you have better sex. So then he said, how dare he talk about sex? How dare him drink a drink during the video? These totally non sequiturs that didn't really matter. The point of the video
Right.
was to talk about that. And she just attacked it all because she didn't like it.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but she ruined the whole group. So she's flipping over the whole table. And I gave her the time, and after that, she still didn't. And she got like 1 or 2 people to join her side too. Because other people read the signal that she was freaking out. They joined in. That's the codependent style of manipulating things. Continue.
So they'll say something like, I'm not very comfortable with the way that you're talking to me. Implication, in order for me to gain comfort, you need to change your behavior and the way that you're talking. It's very subtle. Actually, I don't.
It's very subtle. So in my group and online, people say, I'm uncomfortable with the spotlight, or so I stay in a spot too much, and then they'll say some level of like, I'm uncomfortable here, I'm not sure, or they'll start backing off, and then I just let it go. But then we lose the thread. But this is what happens. In person, I would have more space to feel out the person to see how uncomfortable they are. But online, it's harder for me to read it. Because I would need the right balance of discomfort and comfort and safety. So if they're uncomfortable, I can build trust and I can build safety. We go deeper. Because if we don't go deeper, we don't get to the affect. We can't get to the need. We can't get to the bullshit story. So it continues. So you get close, and then you bounce off it, and you continue the same crappy pattern for another 10, 20 years. Because you can't tolerate affect yourself. But in a group, you can tolerate it more. That's what I'm trying to do in this collective container. But in the group, if you can also mess up the whole group. So it gets too sensitive, you mess up the group, you don't have the collective container. And yes, you win. But you get to suffer longer. So enjoy your hollow victory.
Sounds awful.
Yes, that's why I'm trying to make a pitch, to show you how your unconscious is setting up the same pattern to continue. And the more you can blame the narcissist, or the more you can blame your lack of understanding as a reason why, the more you're just fooling yourself and just making yourself suffer more. And not just suffer more, your suffering is bleeding on other people actively. So you're bleeding and you're putting pain all around to people around you, and you're doing it unconsciously. At least the narcissist knows, the narcissist knows their intention of abusing people. The codependent will do it and not know it, and then claim.
Wait a second. You just answered my question that's been going on for almost a year now.
We tried to address it last time.
They do know. It's very
And that's
aware.
next week.
But you just admitted it. You just answered it. Thank you.
Let's celebrate for Stacy. She's happy.
Yeah, that's going to need another glass of wine. Thank you.
Yes, drinks. Have your alcohol and self-soothing. We haven't gotten to the stage 2 or 3. This is just stage 1.
Thank you.
Because we usually don't see stage 2 or 3 in a group. Because most people recognize stage 1 and people back off. Except a narcissist would see stage 1 and just run over your bullshit threat.
I like the way you're looking at me right now. I like the way you're looking at me right now. The implication is you need to be looking at me differently. This breaks down to, I don't feel good or I feel bad, therefore you must change. When you change, I feel better. Does this sound familiar? Mums do this. They do. Stop doing that or I'll get angry. Basically what they're saying is, if you continue doing that particular behavior, I will change my emotional state to a negative one. Isn't that weird? So child learns that he's responsible or she's responsible for how mum feels.
This is the grooming. The mom says, my emotions, my negative affect is baby's responsibility. And then I'm teacher role. So now the group can say, Deef is responsible for my comfort level, or therapist is responsible for my negative affect, or narcissist is responsible for my negative affect. So narcissists hurt me, therefore narcissists must soothe me. I must use my brain to get the narcissist to soothe me, because the narcissist caused my emotional pain. And you racked your brain out on how to get the narcissist to soothe you or make it even or whatnot. When you can soothe yourself, you're a fucking adult now. But the childhood pattern continues. It's more fun to make somebody else responsible for your negative feeling. Make somebody else responsible for your feeling of safety. To make someone responsible for you never ever feeling triggered ever again in your utopia land with unicorns and seashells.
I have a question for you. And this makes total sense to me. But what do you do? What would be a healthy way to handle a situation where someone's behavior or the way that they're dealing with you does make you feel a little threatened? Or let's say somebody is being aggressive in their manner with you and it does make you uncomfortable. Isn't it appropriate to say, hey, I don't like the way you're handling yourself right now. Please back off a little.
That's one thing you can do.
With that?
It doesn't work.
Stacey, I wonder if what it's doing
How
is
often does it work?
putting the responsibility on the other person, right? Rather than our own self-regulation.
The answer to that is addressed later.
Okay.
But since you threw it out here now.
Sorry.
There's more tools than just articulating, saying, I'm uncomfortable here. You need to stop. That's that's a blunt tool.
Okay.
So the group constantly does things that make me uncomfortable. How often do I whine and say, you guys are making me feel unsafe? And
every time.
And you guys need to change. Does it work?
Every time. No, it doesn't work.
It's effective.
It's effective. It works in my group. When I do it.
Yes, I think so.
When I cry victim and say, I'm hurt, please. When I evoke and say, oh, I'm hurt. The video isn't continuing. I've had this goal. My goal is hurt. I'm identifying as a failure because my goal of trying to present this video is being hijacked, or I'm telling my story is hijacked. How much does that work on people in the group? Do they listen?
Well, last week there was a similar scenario.
No, every week is the same scenario. That's why people don't run groups. This is if you're leading, the audience can say, I don't like, they just attack the leader. Only narcissists usually run groups because they want the supply. So if you go to most groups, you're going to get a narcissist or covert narcissist running because it's a thankless job. Or you have perfectionists who do it because they have some ideal and they want to make money from it. But I'm doing this, I'm not making any money from this. I'm not charging, am I? I'm paying for
I told
this,
you to start charging.
this fucking $15 a month Zoom fee. And I got to buy some lights and other stuff and to make it work, but it's free.
We're happy.
My narc often says, significant narc often says, you make me feel X when you do Y.
Yes, and the embedded message is you're responsible
And I'm
for
like,
me not feeling whatever, the X, Y.
Right.
Yeah. That's the embedded message.
And refuses to, if I confront it, refuses to acknowledge that they are responsible for their own feelings.
Because that confrontation, that technique didn't get through the defenses. Because narcissists and borderlines and personality disorder people, they have better boundaries than you. So whatever techniques you're doing for boundaries and whatnot that you probably learned from a narcissist who was ahead of that psychotherapy school.
Right.
The narcissist is better at that tactic. And then you're going to beat yourself up and say, I should have known better. I just have to practice this tactic more. But that tactic, narcissists and borderlines and whoever, they do it naturally and instinctively and faster, way better than you. And they can cry to authority better than you. There's stories of like borderlines who they'll call you threaten to call the police, but they'll call the police first. And they'll plead their case first and better than you. And then now you're on the defensive where initially you thought calling the police was a threat. And now suddenly it got flipped around because they're better at playing the system. They're better at setting boundaries. They're better at pleading their case than you are. But therapy and a lot of narcissist experts still teach set boundaries, retreat, cave, and it doesn't work for narcissists or against narcissists. Okay, maybe we're getting to stage 2. That might escalate something. I don't know. I don't remember. Yes, they have better survival instincts. That's where narcissists might be better in the new environment because they're willing to take risks. So they might not. They might do a lot of stupid shit with coronavirus and all the stuff, but they'll put themselves out there. They might get it earlier, so if they survive, they have immunity. So,
they're going to have some really good stories, though, after this coronavirus.
Yeah, and then they can amplify the story.
Like the king of Siam invited them to stay in their castle.
They can say, oh, I rescued the coronavirus. I saved the coronavirus.
Right. Mine used to say he invented drones. That's what he said one time. He invented the drone. I'm like, well, why are you living in a first floor apartment in Germantown if you invented drones?
Why are you ruining his story?
Liar.
Let him have his story. Just like let the video continue. Why does people want to mess up stories? You don't watch TV this way, do you? How would you enjoy a TV show if you're just yelling at the TV show? This is a lie. This is a lie. Go watch Avengers and just say, this is a lie. How dare this director lie? How can there be this world? How can there be I don't believe there's Iron Man. I don't believe this superpower. And just say that throughout the movie. See how much you enjoy it. Back to the video.
Some people do it more to a degree than others. So the person may well go, I don't like the way that you're talking to me. I don't like your attitude. Implication, you must change your behavior. Now, if that doesn't work, what they do is they go to stage 2, which is they increase the amplitude of the signal. I told you I'm not comfortable with this. Or I'm really not very happy with this. Implication being, I'm now raising my voice, I'm increasing how bad I feel, I'm increasing the energy of my negative signals and my negative kinesthetics, so you change your behavior.
So the 25-year-old kid, the son, he started going towards the father to escalate the threat. He first said, don't call the police, but then the next time he did a dominance battle by clenching his fists and going towards them and projecting the energy. That was level 2. In codependent groups, then they'll break the energy of the room and just steal everybody's attention and say, you didn't hear me, so I'm going to start messing up the room.
And then when that doesn't work, they often will break down or feel so bad, you haven't got a choice but to change your behavior. One of the lines I used when I worked in mental health was really simple. Guys, got news for you. How you feel does not control what I do.
So this is a nice rule, our mantra. So how you feel doesn't control what I do.
Should we write that down?
You could try this out. I don't see that many downsides of that.
Yeah.
Now, it's not totally true because how somebody else's feel, they could physically act out on you or they could restrain you. So it's not totally true. But it's generally true. How you feel or how other people feel doesn't control your behavior. But you have to, that's a boundary. That's an internal boundary. It's a value system.
Except that a lot of times it does.
Which part? What?
When we're involved with these types of people,
okay,
it does affect what we do.
You say?
It does, but it shouldn't affect.
It shouldn't.
It
and
shouldn't,
the goal is
but
to have it not, but you know as well as I do that it does.
Right, because we internalize everything and take the blame for everything, and
you
know.
fall into the story, which is more next week.
Like, we are toxic.
You believe that story. You fall into your story and their story, and you lose sense of reality.
Because they play this like pity party thing, and they,
and you believe it.
Put the tail between the leg. Like when
you don't believe it, then there'd be no problem.
Right, because when mine took me to court, when I knocked on the door, when I found out he was married,
emotions.
He took me to court for spousal abuse.
And right now, when your memory has gone through this, so right now I muted Leslie for a moment. When her memory is going through it, she's reliving it. How many people see Leslie as reliving the memory? Even Leslie can see that she's reliving the memory.
Okay.
She's retelling it, and then the feelings are coming up in her system. But it's because she believed the story, or she's beating herself up because she believed the story in the past and she shouldn't have, but she's having an emotional flashback right now. That's live.
But doesn't that reinforce the memory every time you do that?
Well, that's how memory works. So every time you remember a story and retell it, it gets changed and re-embedded in your system. So if you remember the story and you neutralize the emotion and you continue doing that, slowly all the energy is lost. But if you keep reliving the story with the intensity and other people add, echo. Carol's echo. And other people add their flavor and add energy on top of it. Now it gets re-embedded with other people's energy. So after I told my story Saturday, I had to decompress for about 3 days to get rid of all your energies that were infecting and polluting my story. Your anxiety reactions, I merge with your emotions, because emotions aren't invisible. They're sort of contagious. So then I had to find myself after that meeting. So when you tell your story, you expose yourself for other people to plant their emotional baggage and pollute your memory, so it becomes worse. So you go to support group meetings and you're with a bunch of other bleeding heart people. You share your story. Carol.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, so I heard Leslie, and I heard her, like, the intensity in her voice when she was sharing her story.
Yes.
And yes, I know I do the same thing. And I had actually my daughter, my young 17-year-old say, "Mom, why do you keep thinking about it? Why do you keep talking about it?" And it's like I have a weakness or a need, or there's something wrong with me. Like, I don't know why, but I do.
You have a need. You have a need.
Yeah, how do we stop that? How do we break that? How can we, like...
You don't need to break it. I sound like God.
No, but how do we... It's not helpful. How do we...
Yes, it's not helpful. I agree there.
So how do we get healthier? How do we... how can we make that process quicker and shorter so we're not hurting ourselves with it or continuing to hurt ourselves with it?
That's what I'm trying to present.
Okay, sorry.
Are you through the question out? And since I'm echoing, I'm hearing echo, you muted. We'll sort of give you a teaser to sort of address it. So it's not about stopping the need. If there's a need to tell a story, there's a need to express yourself, that's valid, that's human. But there are healthier ways and safer places to express your story so that it doesn't get re-encoded the same or worse. You want to tell your story, connect in a way that it integrates. And then maybe it's not exactly solving it, but it's learning from that story experience. It's resolving it. It's more resolving it.
I hear what you're saying, but from my experience, I can tell the same story that happened maybe a while ago with as much intensity as when it was just happening.
Okay.
And how can I get better at letting it go?
You can't.
So is some who we tell?
Yes. It's containment. You're telling the story. Okay, you got to mute Carol. You're telling the story and people can't hold space. If people can't hold space, they pollute your story and it's not heard. That's what happened to me last week. So then telling the story, it doesn't feel productive. There's a negative feeling in the system. In addition, all the polluted crap from the other people who didn't hold space is in my system, and I have to sort through it. But I have tools to self-manage and process, and that's a long process. So as a shortcut, that's Carol wanted something faster, and I'm assuming other people want something easier, faster as a shortcut. Labeling it as a containment issue is a little easier. So if you find somebody else who can contain and hold space for your story, then when you tell the story, it doesn't get polluted and it loses some of the emotional energy. And then it has a higher chance of integrating and resolving naturally. Or when I've done it and worked with people, it naturally resolves or integrates, and you get like magic stuff happen later, or it has ripple effects to other relationships, and it's kind of boring. Holding space is the boring part.
Holding space is not having an emotional reaction and joining them in it. Is that some of it?
Not having an emotional reaction is part of it. Joining in it is more so you're on the side to it.
And not trying to solve it in any way, which...
Yes, if you're solving it, you're joining with them in it. And you're polluting the story. Because the story is in the past. Because you have the memory, it's in the past. You can't change the past, right? You can create the illusion that you're changing the past. Or you can create the illusion that you're changing the video. But a memory inherently, if you remember it, it's in the past. In the past, you can't go back into the past and change the past. So fixing it is, it makes the story more fun for the audience, but it doesn't do anything. But you can't hold space until you can tolerate the tantrum energy. Which is why I started with tantrum energy, but now people still want the answers. So let's go to animals instead of humans.
There was a beautiful conversation going on.
Oh, and then here's the test. Who do you think's the dominant one and who wins the battle? Okay? So follow along and see who you think is more dominant first, who's being more alpha. And then at the end, I think he narrates it and already tells you, but see where your mind goes on who's more alpha or who's more dominant.
With Kimba and Sunny, it was a dominance ritual where you get to see a dog that is not sure asking to be dominated. She was asking. They're not gonna puncture each other, but they're going to touch each other. What they're doing is they're testing who's stronger. That's good. And she's asking for it. She was pushing Sunny, so Sunny can bring his dominant game. Nice. Sunny, at one point, he pounds, and he just became inflated, and you hear rah. It's just to prove a point. I know how weak you are, and therefore you can't control me. You see dominance and submission. You saw how she's quiet.
So that's a submissive position. But if you just look at the fear and the barking, you might think that's an aggressive position. Because the submissive position, the submissive dog is louder. Submissive dog is barking more. Submissive dog has more teeth. But that's a submissive position.
And did this. So her instincts are saying submit, but her bad habit is saying I don't know. He knew she was weak. You see what he did? He inflated his chest and he pounced on the ground. And that bark that you heard, that was a dominant bark, not aggressive bark. Her bark was submissive. And she liked it. That's the point. I mean,
now that's the thing codependents aren't going to understand. The submissive, fearful barking wants to be dominated. It wants to lose. It wants to find a stronger leader.
Well, because it's coming from a place of insecurity. And so they're looking for that security outside of themselves.
Because the barking is insecurity. The barking is fear. The fear is being expressed and masked in the fake anger, the fake rage. But if someone acts out in the group and whatnot, and they're playing victim, codependents believe the victim story. But the victim who's crying out for leadership wants to be dominated. It wants direction. It doesn't want to win. Because if it wins, then you continue the pattern.
That makes total sense to me.
And part of it is psychology doesn't teach you philosophy. So it doesn't teach you how to live. It doesn't teach you how to be a person. Science and academia doesn't teach you how to be a person, how to have relationships. So you've been living through the system, looking for leadership, looking for guidance. And since you haven't found it, you're sort of depressed and sad and pitiful. So you don't trust leadership. You can't find leadership. You can't find examples. And when you do find examples, you test it and you run away. So you don't give potential leaderships a chance because you want to be in control because you don't trust the system. You don't trust others. You don't trust your own read of others. Another 20 seconds.
Let them finish and move away. He will not kill her. He would just control her without a bite.
Yeah.
He's not using his physical. He's using his psychological self. No. And so she's throwing all the punches, and he's like, he's staying right there.
I've never looked at it that way. I mean, see, I'd have thought she was being aggressive and she was trying to dominate her, but...
No, that's not an aggressive dog. No, I mean, he can tell you. He would tell you, this is an aggressive dog.
She doesn't want to bark and she doesn't want to be in her face.
Yeah. But... Look, that's the way dogs do it. They don't send flowers.
So at the end there, the beta dog was now sniffing the other dog's butt, and that's their bonding mechanism. They're very sensory, so each person's or each dog's butt or each dog's shit is unique, and that shit allows them to bond or something. So how's that falling on for people? Do you see the link between the dog's dominance battle is similar to the tantrum energy of that 25-year-old. And it's similar to how the 3-stage ab reaction, it's all the same emotional mechanism at the primitive mammalian brain. So this is a dynamic that's misunderstood, that parents can project anxiety onto the kids and make the kids act out or escalate the kids' energy level. So this is, or watch the body language of the woman. And then I think he guides or goes over what happens to, or narrates parts of it.
Once Caesar feels comfortable, he lets go of Dingo's leash and asks Katie to come in so he can further assess their interaction.
Oops.
Or you can bring Dingo. Please focus on your breathing.
Come on, Minnie. Let's go over there.
No baby talk. You see how you're trying to bring him in?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. Study your energy and how you asking.
Okay.
So it's more from a leadership point of view. You come in more from a dog lover point of view.
Okay.
I understand. I get it. But in order for him to feel safe, not. There you go. As soon as Katie was in the kennel, Dingo's energy became tense. That's not a coincidence. Hey. Hey. Katie's body language definitely reads tense.
So how should I have?
Oh, I'll show you. You're gonna grab a leash and you just make a move. Dogs can sense that, even on the smallest level. Sorry, buddy. Very,
Did I do it wrong?
yeah. He's already tense. See, by you being here, it gets fed from you as well. Yeah, that's why sometimes we remove the owners, so it's easier to influence. That's why in preschool, they don't want parents.
Yeah.
Parents away. Katie is really anxious, and she needs to find a way to calm herself around Dingo. So I have arranged for her to attend a breathing class that helps military people deal with calming their nerves. I think is the perfect thing for her.
So once she went into the cage, her tension, her confusion, her anxiety, her looking for leadership, the dog felt that tension and anxiety and then acted out more around the other dogs with her entrance into the room. So kids are just sponges. So the kid is a sponge, reads in the room, reads whoever's in charge, and if the person in charge can't cope themselves, is unstable, then the kid's anxiety level and uncertainty level increases, and the kid's external searching of the environment, that gets heightened. So then that same kid grows up to be an adult or a therapist or a healer, and then they're constantly searching for wounded people to soothe and fix. Where they need the moral philosophy, they need leadership, they need character development, they need people that will help them, role models of how to live, of how to have relationships, of how to negotiate needs and trade emotional desires and wants, instead of listening to an academic therapist who's got the therapist hat and says, well, just set boundaries, and if they don't listen, leave and get a new relationship. And if that one doesn't listen, leave and get a new relationship. And that one doesn't work, leave and leave. And if you're sad and depressed, come to me and I'll listen to your sad sob story at $100 an hour. And I'll tell you it's all your fault. But I'm not going to say that I'm blaming you. I'm going to say, oh, you're fine, but it's all your fault because you just need to learn to cope better. So I will gaslight you my style instead of the narcissist, but I'll wrap it up in a bunch of jargon and nice terms. Because go to your therapist and start correcting their behavior. I don't like this style, and see what happens. Or say, I tried this tip, I've tried it multiple times, I don't get it, just stonewall there. Force your therapist to come up with a new answer or a different framing and see what happens. Or break down about coronavirus, trigger their fear of coronavirus, and then just sob and cry. And then when they try to soothe you, say, back off, I need space. I want to be, I'm working through my stuff, and see how comfortable they are.
Ugh. You're delving deep this time.
This is boundaries. Boundaries is you have to be able to tolerate the emotional chicken. If you can't, you're always going to lose. Because your style of emotional chicken is threat, 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 but it's using sorrow. You're trying to be the bigger victim. But the narcissist plays biggest victim plus attacks you and blames you. So that's a better weapon. You have to plead to the audience and say, and to authority. So you're pleading to police or authority. The authority doesn't give a damn about your co-parenting rules. The court system doesn't want to hear your battles and stuff. The judge doesn't give a damn about your back and forth. He's got 50 million cases to go through. It's just,
right.
He just wants to.
Nobody's coming to our defense.
Yes.
And
they have
realistically, the only thing we can do is go no contact. That's the only proven remedy.
No.
For our sanity.
You confront. Okay, people want answers. Here's Rich Grannon's answer. So he tells people to do no contact, but that's not what he does. He does it to be safe, and a lot of people want to hear that. But what is his answer? I have other techniques, but he has 2 go-tos of how he handles boundaries. That's at the end of this 2 minutes. So you guys want some answers. This is one guy modeling what he does.
But maybe I'm guilty of poisoning the well as well by suggesting that our only response is an anemic one. If you understand the power dynamic and your martial strategy is in place, and when I say martial strategy, I mean you look at it as somebody who is like in a war, and you're capable of making an accurate assessment. These are the threats. These are the targets. These are my weapons. These are my allies. This is my fallback point. This is what could possibly happen if I do this, this, and this. And you've made an assessment that you're actually in a pretty strong position. Don't let the person off. Don't let some arsehole get away with it. You also have the option, if you're in a weak position, to get to a stronger position and then return fire. Do what you can. Don't let them fucking get away with it because of some implicit anemic, like, just go your own way, or it's the spiritual thing to do. I'm of the opinion that sometimes the most spiritual thing to do, dependent on the context, would go right the way through the full scale of confrontation to physical violence. I am happy to, and have, laid the headbutt on people who were narcissistic psychopaths. But the power dynamic was such that they weren't my boss. There was no dire consequence to me other than a fight, a scrap. And so the power dynamic was such that I could do it. Maybe we do need to be careful about leaning too hard into super careful arse covering strategies. I actually don't really.
Here are his 2 tactics. Are people ready? No commentary, no whatever. His 2 go-tos. This is what he does. He doesn't do no contact. Are people ready? Okay.
Use grey rock, to be honest with you. I use something called lying.
Lying?
Lying. So he doesn't go into lying too much, but lying is very underestimated. I use lying a lot too. But let's see what his second tactic is.
I lie to get rid of narcissists, or open confrontation. I'll just say to them, you're a cunt. I have said that in recent history to a diagnosed narcissist, you're a cunt and I won't have anything else to do with you. Now fuck off, mate. And that was the end of that. Can also also can.
Can also can. I'm not. What does that mean? So you can do both and also can, and then he segued to something else. So the two tactics he uses is he lying. You can lie to a narcissist and they go away, it's done.
What do you mean
use
by
that.
lying? Like, I got pneumonia, or I'm a lesbian, or like, what do you mean by lying? I don't understand.
You can
Like,
agree. So when I agree and amplify. Sometimes I'm lying. I don't have to share my opinion. So, Or you can lie by creating a story of,
I can't see you anymore because
I'm busy with this.
Right.
I have this stuff. Or you. There's multiple ways to lie. You need a lesson on how to lie.
No, you don't.
So lying and open confrontation. That's his two go-tos. I use open confrontation too, but also escalation. But I also use redirecting motivation. I think he does that too a little, but you have to be conscious of what's going on to be able to consciously redirect. So there's two answers. People wanted some answers earlier. Is it not good enough?
No, actually, I thought that those were great.
Can you apply it?
I've done the lying thing to just to get someone to leave me alone, and it works. Just create a story so they'll leave you alone.
Because they're naive, they'll believe anything almost.
Right.
So you don't have to be a good liar.
No.
Yeah, I find that easier than open confrontation. I don't know if I could pull that off.
Yeah, once they know your buttons, though, if you don't have open confrontation or you can't handle the tantrum energy, they still can pull your strings. That's the downside.
Right.
If you only use lying.
Yeah.
With confrontation, though, if you're with somebody who always has to win, they're always willing to escalate it beyond the point that you're willing to go.
They're not willing to escalate. If they're escalating, they're actually beta. You're misreading, just like the dog's owners, that the beta person was beta. It's all an act. It's all bark.
Right. Right. So when we think that they have all the power, it's
let
bullshit.
John make his argument.
Sorry.
You know, if there are actual consequences to it, if they're like, all right, maybe I can't win the substance of this argument, so I'm going to make you pay some other way. If you engage in this confrontational back and forth with certain people, they're not going to back down. They're going to find some way to win, even if it's a different venue. They're going to punish you or to
you're framing it as a constant confrontation because they've done that to frame you. You're framing the need versus the need. That's where you can't see an option for redirect. Redirecting is advanced. So that I'll see if I can discuss that later. But it's actually just an alpha dominance battle. It's just a tantrum versus tantrum battle.
But what about the escalation and consequences?
They're escalating the amplitude, and you're acting out in that, and you're retreating. Let me put this up first. So you have the signal warning. So that's where the 25-year-old kid said, don't call the police. Then you had the escalation. That's the amplitude. That's the threat. That's where he actually ran or started going towards the father, and the father backed off. But the father kept with the threat, with the phone call. So then the son had the ab reaction where he ran aggressively and got stopped by the other guy, sibling or something. So that's 1, 2, 3. And the father referred to the authority as his ab reaction. So leverage versus leverage, police was higher. But back and forth with narcissist codependent, you can't call police. So now the winner of the escalation is the one who can hold the higher emotional energy.
What about practical leverage? I mean, that's what it always seems to come down to is, if they're able to...
Well, the codependent sometimes wins with consequences. So the narcissist has the emotional leverage. They're at stage 3 or 2. They're between stage 2 and 3, okay? The codependent wants to stay at 1 because you got nothing, or you're scared of 3. So then you counter with a consequence, saying, in the future, I'm going to not do this, or you're going to get punishment. And occasionally that works. But you're still losing the dominance battle. So they continue that style because they want to see who's leader. And if they see that if they just do escalation to 2, then you cave, or you dance, or you freak out, and they can enjoy you freaking out. And they get supply from that. I get supply from that. Everyone gets supply when codependents just cave and whatever.
Well, I always felt like it was no win. If you engage in confrontation...
It's not confrontation. It's a dominance battle. It's all both bark on both sides. Maybe you're linking it to confrontation because as a child, when you had the escalation and your tantrum was cried out, it got stuffed by the parent or by whoever was in charge. So you learned that there was no way to win. There's no way for your need to get met. You had to stuff yourself and silence yourself. Put your needs second. Emotionally, you didn't rationally. This is an emotional hardwired. You had to learn, you had to hide, self-silence, punish yourself, and lose that confrontation because it was a confrontation as a child. You wanted to have a house over your head. You had to want to have food. You didn't know how to get a job. You couldn't leave. So you had to just lose and shape yourself to survive. But now you're an adult. So you're having these dominance battles. It's not a confrontation. It's a negotiation. It's a trade battle. It's a testing of strength. So that was Caesar Milan's. It's a testing of strength. So if the narcissist tests your strength and you collapse, they feel good. They like it. So every time they get around you, you see it as a confrontation. They can just test your strength. You collapse, they feel good. Pattern continues.
I guess I didn't really see it as me trying to, get into a battle of wills to assert my own dominance over the situation, but I did want to hold my ground to what I felt was reasonable to be, for things to be the way I thought they should be.
Yes, you have a sense of self that wants to stand your ground, but that sense of self doesn't have character development and confidence and grounding to be able to stand your ground. It's insecure. You have a non-secure style of attachment using attachment theory. Whatever those 3 or 4 categories are. Let that sink in.
Yeah, thanks. I need to consider that more.
This is a reframe. It's not saying it's good or bad. The old style works too, but this is just another tool in your toolbox. Occasionally it's useful to have a dominance battle and let the cards play the way they play out. In the group, I usually don't escalate. So if someone does stage 1 and 2, I just let them go. Or I redirect. So they'll do stage 1, they're uncomfortable. Okay, I'll do a side thing and try to get back to it later. I get back to it later, they do stage 1, stage 2, and they do that multiple times, like 3 times. And I'll say, okay, move on to something else. So I usually cave to other people's stage 1 and 2. But once in a blue moon, they jump to stage 2 and 3 and I'm surprised. And then my tendency is not to cave. Because my sense of self and my reptile brain doesn't know how to cave. Because when you cave, you have to say the right thing and all. You have to start squirming and stuff, and I don't have the language. So I might as well just focus on going in deeper and putting more spotlight. But that might not work for you, and that's fine. You have to customize for your own moral philosophy.
Well, thanks for the tools in there.
So Shonda, the video didn't really cover stage 3, or that one was shorter. But stage 3 abreactions can be really exciting. So he had one client who had a seizure in the middle of an event. So that number 2 threat came up, and then suddenly acting out seizure. And then he just kept going because he had experience recognizing the seizure, and he recognized that it was a play out. It wasn't an authentic seizure. So dealing with stage 3 is tricky. So sometimes a stage 3 will look like physical breakdown, and you have to holding space for that and not trying to soothe it. That's hard. That's tricky. I think it's kind of fun to see someone break down and just, and then I'll watch. So if it escalates and they start choking and doing stuff, then I might think about different ways to soothe it. But a lot of people, if they're just breaking down, shaking, just let it happen. And then if that gets through, then there's a level of catharsis. That energy is discharged, and now they don't have that same energy. They don't have that same trauma energy to attack other people. And that same trauma energy is out of their system. So no more inner critic. So the inner critic doesn't have that vicious, unprocessed energy to beat themselves up. So it's win-win to let people abreact, blow off steam, blow up, fail, or succeed, and then it's just out of their system. So you watch a narcissist, let's say you were to go dominance battle, and then they abreact and you just stay there and you don't do anything. They cry and then they threaten and then they throw stuff. You stay there and then they burn out. Because most tantrums, they're hard to hold more than a minute or two, maybe 5 minutes if you really focus. Then they lose that weapon. You discharge the energy by letting it burn out. There's no more fuel in the fire. So next time they can't use that wound to make you jump. Also, they don't know, they've lost that string to pull on you, so they have to come up with a new string to make you jump.
I'm sorry, Steve. I was trying to get off of mute.
Good.
I did have a question.
Okay.
So the punishment word, I guess, is kind of confusing me because I was flipping back. This is Shonda. I'm sorry. I was flipping back to the video with the young man, the 25-year-old, throwing his temper tantrum.
Yeah.
And I was thinking punishment was the arrival of the officer. But with the explanation that you just gave, now I'm a little confused. Am I mixing it up?
Okay.
What is punishment?
I would frame it more as leverage.
Okay, so that's the energy that's now discharged, that they've burnt out. They've had their tantrum and they've burnt out.
Well, at raw tantrum level, our raw tantrum energy is the leverage. The way it's used as punishment is I'm going to keep escalating my raw tantrum energy and create a story that it's your fault or you need to change. And then I'll add whatever ideas of punishment that come naturally. So his ideas were what? I'm going to strangle you. I forgot what other things he said. But the words are the threat, but the actual punishment energy is escalation, abreaction of emotional tantrum energy. I'm going to freak out more.
Okay.
And I'm going to freak out more, which is going to make you uncertain of how I'm going to freak out. and I'm going to try to direct that freak out at you, the person I want the behavior to change. And if you're on the receiving end of that punishment, that threat, it's up to you to analyze and become educated to evaluate the reality of that threat. Because if you don't have the conscious map to predict it, then yes, you should just run away and do all your no contact stuff. But once you realize your position, their position, whether they can hit you, what they can do, what's their history, then you can sort of call their bluff. And just play emotional chicken and wait it out. Because if they have to, by definition almost, if they go to level 3, that means they're scared. They're beta. Because a true alpha would only have to do level 1 or 2. Level 3 would just be a little burst for a true alpha. Let that sink in. This is...
That's interesting.
Or therapy doesn't teach this. So, and
Hey, Teeth, can I ask, is it any different if the other person is a borderline? If they're sort of in that deregulating space, and like, do you still assert your confidence back, or do you just blank?
it depends on the context of the situation. I would say with most borderlines, when they're abreacting and creating threats and leverage, that threat and that issue is noise. So their threat of suicide, or their breaking down doors or pulling things apart or whatever, doesn't make sense in the context, but they're just grasping into things to blame. And then the issue is just the raw emotions, because the borderline has a fluid capacity of getting you to merge with their wound. And then you're drowning and spinning and spiraling and getting your stuff triggered. So it's not even a dominance battle there. Now it's sort of like two people are drowning and it's lovely and both people should die. But you don't die, because that's the problem with borderlines. They get lost in their emotions, their tantrums. They get more of the sadness side, and they just collapse and fall apart. And it just keeps happening. It doesn't happen consistently, but every 2 to 4 to 6 months, or 6 weeks, so it's probably like 2 to 6 weeks, they have a shame spiral that just envelops them, and they just fall apart. And they try to cling on anybody, and then the people they cling on, they drown. So they're dragging other people to drown. And then their world falls apart, and then they don't die. That's the bad thing. They somehow get resurrected and forget about it. And its cycle continues over and over again, and no one can help them, or they can't find people that can help them or give them any sense of progress. And so they lead very tortured lives inside. But all the people around them see how they feel like the borderline's trying to pull them and drown them with them, or trying to drown the family members. So people don't like borderlines in the long run. They can't hold relationships. And they're very sad and pitiful.
I find there's a lot of character just overlap between someone that's narcissistic and someone that's borderline. It seems to have a lot of similar traits.
What's the point?
Nothing. I just look and trying to analyze and look at the different relationships that I have. I think I've gotten them a little confused. So I just trying to be aware.
Fuck.
What?
Running out of time. Okay.
But isn't that the true inner workings of a narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, borderline? Deep down inside, they are broken. Deep down inside, they are destitute.
They're betas.
Right. So, like,
yes,
in my
case. That's not the point.
But what is the point then?
This. Because we're running out of time. So we'll mute Leslie. It feels so good. You can mute people and put people on hold. This is like a power position. But now this is a map of how to get empathetic for your needs and their needs, so now you can navigate different boundaries. So John mentioned redirecting motivation. So this is a simple pie chart that isn't really 2D, but I stole this from design thinking empathy maps and value something. So there's some business tools. So the breakdown of wants, needs, and fears and noise. So if you have human motivation to either go towards something or run away from something, it's going to have some combination of wants, needs, fears, and noise. Okay? So then to sort this out, you do to the next slide, which is this. So now you have a dualistic. You have positive gain and you have negative pains. So this is how your inner system works, your egocentric system works. You chase after short-term gains usually because you don't have the broader picture. Or you hyper-obsess in fears. Maybe you hang out here more than you hang out in needs, but you hang out in the pain area more. Then you live your life trying to run away from pain and trying to search after easy gains because you don't understand the game and other game players are destroying or abusing you. So you hang out here more. And maybe narcissists are more aggressive, so they hang out here more because they can inflict pain on others to get more short-term gains. But that's not navigating boundaries very consciously. So you go to the next slide. So this is maybe what codependents do. So they slowly don't focus on their gains and they don't focus on their pains. And they focus on other people's, that's noise. You got to sort through the noise. Noise isn't good or bad, but noise is your environment, other people. So other people have pains and fear. So you spend all your time trying to control other people's fears, but you don't know their wants and needs. So you're stuck in noise and you spend all your time doing things that don't make any progress. So I call that ain'ts. You scope out a room and you try to find the biggest wound, and then you preemptively jump in and you try to rescue and save it. And it ain't working. It ain't going anywhere. If you're successful, maybe you have a short-term bonding with another codependent, or you find a new narcissist, and then that starts the cycle over again. And the hoovering is very pleasant, I hear.
That sounds awful.
So the ain'ts don't work because you're not focusing, you're hanging out in fantasy land. And then you don't realize that boundaries is all about consequences, what works, what doesn't work. Now you're just thinking about what should work or what shouldn't work, or you're in hyper-rational fantasy land and you're floating, and then now you're falling a little and eventually you'll just crash and burn. But when you're floating, you feel good, maybe, I don't know. So when you start floating, you get good at this. You hang out in here, blah. So you've learned that this sucks. Trying to fix other people's fears and trying to live from your pain and fears. That sucks. So then you've learned no contact, gray rock, dissociation, your world gets smaller. And then you don't have any real empathy to understand the environment or the narcissist. You don't know what their needs, wants, or fears are. Because you're egocentrically projecting your interpretation on top of people. You're not actually testing the waters. So you're in blah land. Can someone emote blah in some sort of expressive way? Tony, anybody?
I get it. This is the one thing that's not black and white that I'm riding. I mean, my foot's to the pedal on this.
Yeah. So this is PowerPoint style because everybody's socially conformed and programmed to accept information this way.
I get the wants and the needs thing. I mean,
yeah, what don't you get?
I know I'm saying I do. I mean, we hear the noise and we see the fears and we're so quick
to jump on the fear.
To jump in there. That's an egotistic. I could fix that. I could fix it.
That's your ain't working.
And it's only from our own point of view. We never really take time.
Because it's a noise. You don't take time for this.
To see what's really right. What is it that they really want?
Yeah.
And what is it that they really need? And we're giving them what we think they should have or what we think is best for them. And it ain't working.
It's blah. Yeah. Ain't working.
And that creates the confusion. I love it. Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay. We're done. Tony's got it. Don missed out. Sorry.
But I also had a bowl of greens that helped.
Keith, are you saying, though, it's not even just, and I loved your explanation, Tony, it's not just even making sure we're clear on somebody else's wants and needs, but you're saying we rush to do the fixing, and even that is something that we're trying to work on, right? Like, why rush in for the fixing?
You have no idea what their wants and needs are, and you don't even know what your wants and needs are. So your wants, needs, and fear is why you rush in. You're on autopilot. So
but wouldn't it also be that you want to fix what a normal person, if you fixed it, then you can move on, but a narcissist is not normal. So
I guess none of us are.
I got lost in normal, narcissist not normal. I think you're just thinking out loud. So.
No, what I'm saying is if you fix like a normal person, like you can fix them because it's normal stuff that you're fixing, but in
you shouldn't be fixing people. Recognize people's autonomy and individuality and stop fucking polluting other people's space.
Right.
Show some respect.
Let them fix themselves.
Yes. Let people have their suffering and their lessons. God gave it to them specifically.
Right? Like that's your point about like we don't understand our needs and wants. We need to be working on us, not trying to work on others.
You don't need to be distracting yourself to the point where you forget about working on yourself. Yeah. But sometimes the collective self needs help. That's coronavirus.
I mean, it is just so powerful to grasp this because we could find ourselves so immersed in other people's wants and needs and just totally neglect ourselves. And then
that's beautiful.
And then we don't even know what we want.
That's perfect. Perfect slave. That's the American worker.
I'm not doing it anymore.
No. Be passive. Be a good slave. Slavery never ended. That's why all the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter is recognized. It's still happening.
So why do I want to be that?
You don't, but you don't have models of how to not be a slave. So you're still continuing.
Well, I can be free.
That's the grand goal. So maybe after next week, 3 meetings to cover a roadmap on how to become free.
I think I have an understanding.
Okay, well then you don't need the next 3 or 4 meetings.
I'm curious.
You just need to give us a success story after you've proven it. Tell me, how you got the shortcut so you can share with all the rest of the people that can't figure it out.
Well, I'm free to join this session.
Yeah. And when you recognize your freedom of choice,
yes,
then now you can consciously engage boundaries and not get all caught up in people's stories. Yeah. It's that easy. It's really, once you see it, it's easy.
Right. Interesting.
Steve, would it be fair to say you may not even be clear on your boundaries if you don't know what your wants and needs are? I mean, this is like
you're a noise.
We're noise, right? Back to the point of, I think where you started us, which is understanding ourselves. What is our purpose? What is our meaning?
So if you spend time with empathy, you can lower the noise percentage. So maybe a codependent might have like 90% noise. So then you slowly, with empathy, you learn yourself and self-work so that the noise lowers, or you're sorting for the noise. And then you learn other people in your environment so that your noise is more contained. And when you have this, or you start managing these 4 quadrants, but mostly 3, noise is just unknown. And
I
some
took
of
a test
unknown
on
is not needed. But
noise is distraction.
Noise can be distracting, so you got to sort through it. You got to prioritize it. Some of it's useful, some of it's just noise, but you got to explore it. Stacy, what?
Oh, nothing. It was just something stupid.
Good. No stupid
Can you
shit.
share that?
That was noise.
Yeah, I
She was
took a
gonna throw
test on
noise.
Facebook. It says, pick an image and find out if you're a psychopath. And mine says that I'm 98% empath.
You see, that's noise.
I don't.
It was just noise.
That's what people do.
I don't
They
believe
throw
it.
in noise, and people respond to the noise. And then
I was just glad not to be labeled as a psychopath.
15, 20 minutes go by.
So you had doubt.
It's already past time. We're muting Stacy and Tony. How's that feel to be muted? Look at that expression. Ah! She wants self-destruction. Oh, that's good. That's perfect. What do you think the answer is? That's the answer. Look at Stacy. Right there, that's the answer. And the answer, I will say 3 letters. There. What changed? So normally if you're stupid or you're a child, you just focus on short-term gain and pains. As you become an adult, you focus on ain'ts and bleh. You develop empathy and you develop boundary skills and navigation awareness and whatnot. And you can tolerate and recognize tantrum energy and all these 3-stage abreaction manipulations everyone's trying to do. You now develop leadership skills and self-leadership skills. And what that is you learn to aim. And if you want to aim and kill your head with a gun, that would be aim, but you learn to aim. And then where would you ideally put your aim? You put your aim between the wants and needs, because the wants up here don't meet your needs. So that's a wasted gain. It's an easy gain. So a lot of the easy gains are a want, but you have to keep getting it. It doesn't last. If you get a want that is closer to your need, then it lasts longer. It might be a little more work to get, but it's lasting and maybe more meaningful. So you get closer towards the center of you instead of all the way out here, then that's a core need. And then you have to recognize the fear. So maybe this is like a circle or oval, but I put it over here, because you have to recognize you still have fears and pains, and you have to honor your pain and fear and pain. So you have to aim in a level that's recognizing the fear and the pains, and at the same time that's directing towards a future need that also is a short-term want.
So we should be focused on our own wants and needs.
No.
Others.
You have to focus on others because others are in the way.
Got it.
Typically, others are in the way of your own wants and needs. So if you lead just focused on your needs, then very quickly other people's wants and needs and issues become obstacles for you. And then they're going to superimpose their wants and needs on you, creating excess fear in your system because you're not able to get your wants and needs. So you got to clear space in the environment, recognizing your environment and the outside of what people's fears, wants, and needs are, to make sure you're not stepping on their toes, their fears. That clear space, you develop trust, and then now you have more space to pursue your wants and needs. And at the same time, you recognize their wants and needs and pains, and you know their leverage points. So now you know how to redirect them in a way that's win-win, or win for you and lose for them, because you're not lost in noise in the blah and ain't land.
And so if we don't want to give them their wants and needs, we should rid ourselves of them.
Well, you can, but a lot of codependents still have them in their head. So you physically rid yourself of them, but they're still in your head for some reason. I'm not sure. That seems like a common dynamic.
Seems easy to just get rid of them.
Keep doing it. That's maybe why you graduated. Get rid of them, kill them, whatever. Sure, if that works for you, go for it. I don't care.
They're in the way. Get rid of them.
Yeah, kill your obstacles. So if you're able to aim for your wants and needs, and if anybody is an obstacle and triggers your fear, just run over it and kill them. Go for it. If that works, go for it.
You hear the sarcasm in his voice?
What?
No, I think it's genuine.
That's genuine. Where's the sarcasm?
Not. Then that's called sarcasm.
Why is that sarcasm? You can use this map any way you want. There's
no
moral judgment
maybe
here.
Don't kill people. I don't know.
Don't kill yourself. Actually, kill yourself. Kill what you think is yourself, and now you're spiritually awakened.
Just kill the ego part.
Yeah, but you have to. That feels like death. Your own death.
It already happened.
Well, that's what you think. Keep saying that mantra and see what God gives you.
No.
Yes, exactly.
No, I know not to test that one.
So here's 4 simple steps, and I'll put this as photos, and then we're pretty much finished because we're over time. So if you're negotiating with someone who's challenging, you first acknowledge them. You can affirm them or whatever. So if someone comes in and throws a question, I give them some time. So that's my affirming. In dominance battles and academia, they just run over people and just ignore people. Bulldoze, which is one tactic, but then that person's still needy. And then now they're annoyed, but that's academia. If the person doesn't have the lecture light, they can ask questions, and the expert doesn't have to answer it. They can run over it. They can change a different question. Number 2, then you acknowledge a person, then you ask them questions to clarify, to dig, like, what's up? What's the concern? What exactly is going on? So I do this, right? Number 3, that's sort of reflection back, but the advanced skill is reframing. So can you find a workaround that meets your needs or wants? So can you reframe it by aiming the person's needs and wants in a way that is more collaborative to your needs and wants, or doesn't run over your fears as much? Or can you direct the question and reframe it to explain their fears better? So maybe they're misperceiving their fear and projecting it on you, and it's not really accurate. So just talking back and forth can clarify the person's fears, sort through the noise. But if you want to be better at setting boundaries, you have to be the leader to train the other person towards aiming towards wants and needs, and then collective wants and needs, and creating space for that, instead of getting into a battle of fear or ain'ts, like, who's more important, worthless dominance battle. Who's more important, worthless dominance battle.